What's up YouTube? Today we have some very unfortunate news that every content creator is freaking out about, which is about the endgame of Genshin Impact throughout a GameStar interview. In this interview, Mihoyo stated that they have no plan to add new endgame content in Genshin Impact because it might end up creating excessive anxiety for our player and not everyone is interested in that. Now, that's something I want to address today in this video. As a meta-focused content creator, I definitely have some mixed feeling about it since my entire channel is about the Genshin Impact endgame, which is Spiral Abyss. But in addition, I want to make a full disclosure very quickly, aside from apologize for the whatever clickbait title or thumbnail that I end up making. But if you're subscribed to this channel or this video somehow just got recommended to you on your YouTube page, there is honestly a pretty good chance that you are a endgame Genshin Impact player and you decently care about the Genshin Impact endgame, as that's the reason why you're consuming these kind of content. And if you're not, then maybe you could listen anyway and give him some of your input. But with that being said, I think we definitely saw it coming that Mihoyo didn't really have a lot of plan to add new Genshin Impact permanent endgame. It is a lot of development effort for potentially not a very huge amount of player base, since Genshin Impact is mostly casual focused. My problem isn't that they are not adding new Genshin Impact endgame mode. My problem is that the reason of not adding new endgame mode is kind of shitty in my opinion, which is like, oh, it creates excessive anxiety for other players, and so we're not gonna do that. At first, I didn't really understand like how does it create excessive anxiety for other player, but after spending about 2.5 hours with my Twitch chat going over some discussion, going over some thoughts from the casual player, I actually did end up understanding it. It's very unfortunate. I still don't agree with it, like I disagree with this mindset, but at the very least I kind of understood where they're coming from. And to be honest, in case people are curious, is it actually true that they're not making it because of people feel anxiety? Like a casual player, do they actually feel stressed about endgame content like Spiral Abyss? Unfortunately, the answer is actually yes. That is very unfortunate, and I have seen a lot of respawns that are like, Spiral Abyss is so stressful, I don't want it in the game, please remove Spiral Abyss. Or like, Spiral Abyss just shouldn't exist in the game because Genshin Impact is a casual focused game, and so they shouldn't really make content that are tailored to endgame. Personally, in my personal opinion, that are terrible take, because to me it screams that they're very entitled. Something that you don't enjoy doesn't mean someone else doesn't enjoy it. Genshin Impact endgame and the casual player base are not mutually exclusive. They can definitely both coexist at the same time. And if you don't enjoy Spiral Abyss because it creates you a lot of stress and you don't want to do it, then you don't have to do it. I mean, the main reason why people feel stressed and over focus on the fact that they have to do it is because it gives primo reward. I think that's not the right mindset. It doesn't really give that much primo. The Genshin Impact endgame content in general are there so that players who are integrated with the Genshin Impact combat system, which is a huge part of the game, can have a place where they toy with that combat system, essentially. Genshin Impact combat system is actually one of the best in the market right now, and we actually talked about something related to that in one of the very early Kaching podcasts. It looked very simple, it feels very simple, but it's actually very complex because your available options are either cast your elemental skill, cast your elemental burst, normal attack, or swap characters. Without going deep into something like elemental gauge theory snapshotting, Genshin Impact combat fundamentally still have a very decent depth to it, which are things like combo, rotation that everyone can do. Like switching from this character to that character is like a combo or rotation that can yield very satisfying results when you do pull it off correctly. You know, like casting Bennett Burst so that you can vaporize your Xingqiu's elemental skill. It's a fairly straightforward combo that could be very satisfying because you get 1.5 times damage on your Xingqiu's elemental skills for a big nuke or something like that. The Genshin Impact combat system is very satisfying to play with and have a good amount of depth, even though it looked very simple, which is why it is one of the best in my opinion and definitely attract a lot of people. Now the problem is that with such a good combat system, players definitely need a way to express their not necessarily skills but just their desire to toy with the Genshin combat system, and that's what endgame content is mostly for. It's basically just a playground for players to test out their combat system. The Primo Gem honestly is mostly just to serve as like a motivation for people to play it rather than actually being a reward. It is certainly a reward, but reward itself is like motivation. We're gonna go into that a little bit deeper later, but that's the reason why Genshin Impact endgame is, in my opinion, necessary just so that combat system can be utilized. To put it in another word, if endgame system didn't exist, there wouldn't even be a reason to log in. You wouldn't have a huge reason to log in every day to spend your resin to improve your characters, because your improved characters isn't gonna get utilized anywhere. There is no content for you to play with your characters. There's no reason to improve your characters if there's no endgame content. The reason why you want to improve your characters, to farm artifact for them, to level them, or to like increase their talent level, is so that they can get stronger and beat the endgame content in Genshin Impact better and easier. And that's the main carrot for leveling your characters. And then the main carrot for actually playing the game is the Spiral Abyss itself. With that being said, I definitely hugely disagree with this highlighted blue part here, where endgame content create excessive anxiety for our players, so they shouldn't implement it. Because for certain amount of group players out there, potentially a good amount of people that generate your revenues, since I would like to say revenue probably have somewhat of a direct relationship with character strength. Characters that are not as strong doesn't generate as much revenue compared to characters that are potentially stronger. And so there are definitely incentive to create content that incentivize you to make stronger characters and improve your characters. I mean, after all, that's basically what constellations are. Constellations are a way for you to improve your character even further by spending money. And if Genshin Impact endgame content doesn't exist, then people wouldn't really bother to pay for constellations or even 5-star weapon, because there isn't a valid reason to, right? There is nothing for you to beat down, and so why would you need a stronger character that doesn't really do anything? Right now, one of the reasons to pay for constellation, especially the overpowered one like Ryan C2, will be so that you can destroy the Spiral Abyss. So in that case, Genshin Impact endgame serve a purpose for revenues reasons, but if they remove that, then it wouldn't exist. And my main problem with this is just like, once again, endgame content and casual player are not mutually exclusive. They can make endgame content that cater to endgame player while not giving up their casual player base. In fact, the overall game is probably mostly casual catering. It's like about 80 to 20 on a very generous amount. 80% is casual cater, and then 20% maybe some of the more difficult event, maybe event that introduce scoring system or medal system, are a little bit more endgame player catering. The game is already very casual focused, and I feel like it's fine to have a little bit of catering to the endgame player. I definitely do not understand the mindset of casual player baby raging that the entire game should just only cater around them, and that Spiral Abyss content should just straight up not exist at all, and they should remove Spiral Abyss. By the way, just for people watching this video, I'm not actually exaggerating. Within our 2 hour of research and discussion, that is actually surprisingly, I was very surprised, but that was surprisingly actually a very common take apparently. I don't know why. But anyway, I think like having additional content is always just better. If someone feel like they can't do it and they shouldn't, or they don't want to do it, then they can just not do it, and they shouldn't really feel the stress of missing out on something. A way of that could be Genshin Impact just changing the endgame reward to something else that still incentivize endgame player but not necessarily make the casual player feel left out. For example, things from Mora, maybe not resin, but like gold artifact boxes that you can from Spiral Abyss. And I think those are things that can be incorporated into the endgame reward system to make it feels like casual player are not missing out on Primo but just some other things. And if they still complain, then well, I have no word. Interestingly enough, I think as a gacha game, with the way they do limited event anyway, the entire game is basically excessive anxiety, but they're not gonna say like, oh, our limited time event create excessive anxiety for our player, so we're gonna remove those. No, they're not gonna do that. A good example I can give would be Golden Apple during the 2.8. For reference, during the 2.8 Golden Apple, I completely didn't give a shit about it because it was so annoying to do. I ultimately chose not to complete Golden Apple and open every single chest, even though it does mean I missed like reward slash primo slash whatever, but it was just not interesting and not fun to me, and so I didn't want to bother with it, right? But no matter what, that Golden Apple thing with limited island, limited chest that you can only get during this period, and you have to explore the entire island and make sure you find every single chest and make sure you don't miss any chests, because otherwise you miss primo. It's definitely a similar aspect to excessive anxiety. And something else that I thought about was the Genshin Impact 3.0 Alarm Nala quest, or the 3.0 event quest have a certain part where it requires you to do the Alarm Nala quest to get the reward. And once again, I certainly did not do that because the Alan Nala quest was so long that I just didn't really bother with the reward. Did I feel missed out a little bit? Maybe. Does it create excessive anxiety for me? Not really. Does it create so much stress for me that I'm gonna ask Mihoyo to remove it and other player cannot have fun and other players shouldn't be able to enjoy it because I don't find it enjoyable? Definitely not, because I would find it very unreasonable. I think a very good example would be the teapot, which is like a casual paradise endgame where you can just do a lot of things. You can like think about it all day, all like you can spend a lot of time on it, customizing your house. For me, I don't care, so I just put my house here, and I just put a bunch of junk here to get my point up, so I can get like 60 resin a week or whatever. And to me, it's like whatever. I'm not gonna say anything like, oh, I don't enjoy the teapot, it is wasting my phone space, please remove it. So this is like the outer end of the spectrum where it is like the casual end game for Genshin Impact, and they can definitely coexist just like how they coexist now. The Spiral Abyss doesn't interfere anyhow with the teapot, and the teapot doesn't interfere anyhow with the Spiral Abyss. So I think the biggest thing here is that these things are not mutually exclusive. You can include your end game player as well as your casual player. I think a well-designed game and a long-lasting game include both spectrum of the player, maybe in like an 80-20 split, I don't know, but they definitely include everyone, which is how you make a successful game. To some extent, that is something like the Vagabond event where there is a difficulty slider where the lowest difficulty can get you all the reward, including every single primo, and the expert difficulty are just mostly there for people who really want to do it. You are definitely not required to do it, even though it is very difficult. You only do expert because you want to have a challenge, because you want to test out your team. Maybe you're a swiper and you just want to see you destroying the hardest content in the game. But expert mode in event like these were always optional, right? Do casual player feel excessive anxiety that expert mode exists and they can't complete it, so they should just completely remove expert mode? Now, apparently the answer is yes, but I don't think that should be the right answer, right? Adding in the expert mode there for the people who do want to do it is not mutually exclusive from excluding the casual, because they can still get every single reward available from the event, and so they are not really missing out on anything. Maybe like 2 more or something like that, whatever expert mode gave, if he even gave anything at all. I would say that at the end, even though I actually end up understanding the mindset of it, I cannot agree with it at all. I really disagree with the mindset of, oh, other players are enjoying this thing that I can't do or I don't enjoy, and so Mihoyo should just completely remove those aspects, or like they shouldn't care about those players at all because I don't enjoy it. I find that's very entitled and very self-centered. Now, for the people who might be wondering what is this excessive anxiety mindset, and that is people do feel anxiety about seeing other people accomplish things that they can't accomplish, because then they feel like they are inferior, which is true. To be honest, I finally related to it when I thought back to my university days, where during my time in my university, when I had a lot of really smart peer that kind of like won Olympics in terms of math, I looked at them and they'd be like, wow, they're so smart, they keep doing things that I can't do it, I'm no match for them, I'm so dumb, and I constantly got anxiety in my university days. So that's kind of something similar, so that's why I end up understanding it. Now, when I was there though, my respawn wasn't that, oh, this test is too hard and my peer can score high but I can't, they should lower the test difficulty. That's not the respawn that I have. The respawn that I had was that, oh, I wasn't good enough and my peer are so much better, I really should improve myself. I need to think about ways I can improve better, I need to think of ways I can study better, and just overall become a better and a smarter person. And to that extent, I know it is like an extreme example, but that's what I did, and that's how I graduated in the end with my university degree of computer science. But I think you can kind of loosely tie that to Genshin Impact. If you aren't able to clear Spiral Abyss, instead of begging Mihoyo to remove Spiral Abyss and take the fun away from the people who enjoy it, maybe you can just think about how you can improve your team to clear the Spiral Abyss. I know a lot of people cry pay to win, but this is the part where I would like to introduce you guys to a free powerful characters named Xiangling. In fact, this is how most of the content creator on the western side kind of behave, I think, and there are efficient way of clearing the Spiral Abyss without potentially spending too much. I would say, as a person who is not too interested in the story, the questing, or the exploration aspect about Genshin Impact, the thing that keep me interested the most, and that's why I have this YouTube channel, and it's the combat itself. The combat system is really cool, it's what I found really interesting. So it's definitely very disappointing to hear that they're not gonna do combat related endgame content, and it's especially disappointing of hearing the reason as creating excessive anxiety for other players, just because some player refuse to let other player have fun and they're gonna cater to those players. They're gonna do that, and that's making me really sad. Some people are saying that Genshin Impact Impact card game is going to be the new end game that everyone can enjoy stress-free. I'll be honest, maybe, maybe not. We will see when the card game come out. And I will say, like, right now, I actually don't have high hopes for the card game. The reason is that I think overall the card game just lack complexity. It is too simple to even be called a card game. It is just basically like tic-tac-toe or rock, paper, scissors in disguise. Maybe some people enjoy tic-tac-toe, but I think most people would like something that's a little bit more complex, which is why chess or Go are more popular than tic-tac-toe, because tic-tac-toe is a soft game. It's have a completely unlosable meta and something like that. A lot of people are probably curious about the Chinese player thought about this entire thing. I would say right now they are actually rather neutral, but I think mostly because they actually don't understand the important aspect about it. For example, the thing that I see the most is that they are fairly neutral about the fact that Genshin Impact isn't going to add new permanent endgame, which, to be fair, at the beginning of the video we also mentioned that we're pretty much expecting it. It's not too surprising, and to be honest, I would say that I'm a little more or less neutral on that aspect as well. And again, the main focus for this video and the thing that kind of drives me a little more crazy is the reasoning behind that. Well, that's the part they don't understand because, well, the word excessive anxiety is difficult for Chinese players to understand. In fact, the original post, it looked like they don't actually have the mention of the reason. They were just like, hey, America, well, that's what they mean. America people are talking about Genshin Impact isn't getting new endgame, but they don't understand the reason, which is this highlight that blue part. So I'm actually gonna make a pinned comment in the below in Chinese, and maybe someone can forward it to them, maybe I can forward it to them, and then I'll see what they respond to as. But with that being said, that is pretty much all I have to say. Actually, I don't have a lot to say other than the fact that I'm just disappointed, and I'm extremely disappointed at the way certain aspect about the community would respond, as in you're not allowed to have fun because I don't have fun. That part extremely disappoint me. It feels very self-centered. It feels very entitled. Maybe I'm wrong. Well, what can we do about it, right? It is what it is. I'm definitely gonna still play Genshin Impact. I think Spiral Abyss is in a good spot. Once cycle every 2 weeks, it's enough to keep the carrot for me and probably other people going, and it's like why we kept playing the game. Maybe for some of you it's not enough. For me, it is somewhat enough. To be honest, I do enjoy the break between Spiral Abyss, like not having to do Spiral Abyss like every day, for example. And I enjoy the 2 week cycle. I do wish for a little bit more endgame content, especially for the people who care about it, because the worst thing that can happen to me is like they make new endgame content, I don't feel like doing it, and I just don't do it. But the people who do care about it can have fun. And yeah, it is really just that part that get me. I know there are other things within this article that are like power creeps, something like that, angels. But the main thing I want to focus on is just this. So maybe we can talk about that in another time. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have for me. This video is unscripted, so I apologize. It is a lot more scuffed, but I definitely want to give you guys my honest opinion, my unscripted thought on the matter. Especially, once again, I'm a more meta-heavy focused content creator whose entire content is focused around the end game, and so I feel like at the very least I should give my core audience, or maybe potentially some other people who care about the end game, a little bit about my insight on the issues. So that being said, thanks for watching. Let me know your comment. Let me know what your thought in the comment below. I think this is particularly important. I would really like to know what are my YouTube subscriber feelings. And but with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys know it. It is sad, but it is what it is. And don't forget to subscribe as always, like, whatever. And I'll see you guys next time.